my business was formed out of the frustration of my own home office that I'm sitting in today. I literally would walk in here and turn on my heel and walk right back out because there was just stuff everywhere because I didn't have a place for it to go. And I wasn't functional, I wasn't productive. It made me sad because I knew how it should be for me and that's another thing I'm going to touch on is in a second about everybody's organizing is not a one size fits all. It does not look the same for every single person. But just to answer your question, I feel like it's come from years of just understanding that when I don't have a lot of things around me taking away from distracting me basically, and not giving me the bandwidth to be able to create or to, help others or whatever it might be, taking that volume and that clutter away is definitely something it can be learned. That's the other thing too. It's some people it's innate in, and then others it doesn't come naturally, and that's okay because you can. It's just small, simple little habits that are shifted. That way you can get to the goal that you want to achieve.
I'm glad you mentioned, it's not a one size fits all, as most things in life aren't, contrary to all our popular belief. If I gave you a tour of our bedroom, you'd see the absolute dynamics in what's considered or believed to be neat and tidy. You look in my closet, and I'll be honest with you, it still looks like it was when I was growing up. Unlike you, where it was by color and by season and so forth, for me, it was every article of clothing was a certain distance apart from one another. Like they couldn't be touching. I don't know. It was the OCD in me. I don't know exactly where exactly. I know where it came from, but I didn't know how it manifested in my mind in that way. And it looks the same way now. But if you look across the room to my wife's side of the room, her side of the bed and so forth, there's stuff everywhere, at least in my mind, but she knows where everything is. Mm-hmm. So how do you, and I couldn't, she asked me to go find something in that mess, there's no way I would find, you probably wouldn't find me anymore because I'd be buried in there somewhere. So how do you get people to kind of not necessarily change their minds, but have that mindset shift where they can see things in even a slightly different way?
Yeah, you hit on a good thing, because what is neat and tidy to you could be the polar opposite of for somebody else, but they know where everything is. And so if that's how they need to see things or function or organize, then that's one of the things that we help my team and I help our clients, kind of create, because asking the question of, do you feel like, what type of organizer are you? Do you feel like if it's behind a drawer, if it's in a bin under the bed, I don't have it anymore. It's out of sight and therefore it doesn't exist. And a lot of children are very much like that. I will speak for my 10-year-old daughter, who I lovingly and jokingly say that my 10-year-old daughter is my worst client. She's gotten so much better as she's gotten older, but she has to see every single thing or she doesn't have it. And adults are like that as well. And so just truly asking the questions and just understanding, when you walk into this space, do the things that are on the nightstand and on the dresser and then in the closet, do you not notice it, or is it okay, or does it make you feel a little anxious and stressed when you walk in? Because if the answer for the last question is stressed and anxious, then that's how we can come up with a good system to kind of create for that person. And households have different organizing styles, different folks, as you well experience.
Absolutely.
Right. So just really understanding, and just from a tactical standpoint, like you always are organizing for the macro kind of organizer. So the person who is very meticulous and has all the small little bins behind the closed cabinet, that's a really big stretch for somebody who just has everything on the nightstand, right? So we've got to kind of organize for both, but making sure that it's not too much of an unrealistic thing to maintain, pretty much.
Oh, it's funny you mentioned your daughter, because and I don't think everybody, obviously nobody out there saw this unless you're seeing a video of this, but I pointed towards my son's bedroom, which is just over my right shoulder. And if I were to give you, well, I wouldn't want you to go in there. I mean, talk about stressed. but he knows where everything is because it's all on the floor, so it's easy to spot. So unless, I mean, I walk in there, I step on everything, so obviously it's not easy to spot for me, but for him, it's organized chaos, if you will. So how do you instill that even from a young age? Like I said, it was instilled in you in the beginning, but then as you got a little bit older, you rebelled and then kind of went full circle again. So how do you instill it even in your youngest clients?
Well, there are a lot of schools of thought to organizing with young children. And of course, the young is subjective. So if we're talking, 3, 4, 5, even, then you can do a lot of it on your own. But when they get a little older, or on a case-by-case basis with your child, like for instance, my child, when she was 4, if I implemented this strategy I'm getting ready to say, she would have lost her mind, which was, oh, they're at school, they're at camp, they're wherever, they're at grandma's. Let me just clean out their room real fast, right? And it sounds great in theory because why? We're the adult, we can get done quicker. We know what it looks like needs to be tidy. A child's going to want, oh my gosh, I haven't seen that toy in 5 years, but it's my favorite, right? So how to kind of find that balance? One is understanding the child, right? My child is very much, she knows the rock that her preschool teacher gave to her, and it's in a certain spot. And if I was to move it, then the world would be over. Or they get a little older, as she is now. So it's just really understanding how they need to see things, but knowing that labeling is a big deal for kids that can't read, using pictures on the labels, of printing out a picture of a truck, or a doll baby or whatever it might be, really helps for the tidy up time. And then just really helping, so if there's kids that are a little older, I definitely encourage doing it with, maybe doing it kind of partial with, and then with the child not at home. And by that, I mean, get everything out and sort it. So that way you've got all the doll babies together. You've got all of the whatever's together. And then bring the child in and say, we're going to go on a shopping trip or a scavenger hunt. And I want you to pick your 3 favorites of this. And then go from there. Because if they're very, resistant to that and they want to keep all, then it's a different conversation. If they're like, oh yeah. And then you can even do it in another kind of graduated donation timeframes. So maybe it's the things that they don't love and aren't playing with right now, you can put into a rotation. So you can get them into a bin, into a box, out of sight, and 90 days later, bring it back. And if they haven't missed it in that 90 days, it might even be something that they can get rid of, so it's definitely little ones are definitely, it's a fine balance.
And I'm sure you could probably say that about some adults too.
True.
In some cases, they might be tougher clients than even the youngest ones. So how did you go about finding that style, that approach to help satisfy all different types of clients that you're going to work with? Because just like one size fits all doesn't apply to organization, one size fits all doesn't apply to each client and how we approach them and how we deal with them.
Absolutely. So the first thing is 100% zero judgment, like no judgment ever. And just coming from a place of compassion and kindness, patience as well, because, when folks call us, they're ashamed, they're embarrassed, they have guilt, that it's gotten to a spot where they can't do it on their own. Right. And so just truly celebrating the fact that even just, filling out the form on the website or picking up the phone to call, it's a really, really big deal. And then actually working with them, it's again, understanding and helping them to understand it didn't get like this overnight, and it's not going to, there's not a magic wand either. Although a lot of our clients do like to call us their fairy godmothers. Just come in and we just wave this and then it's organized. But no judgment, compassion, and just really, really helping them understand